What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Sixers Digest YouTube channel. My name is Barnard, as always, and I'm here to break down why James Harden may finally be out of leverage. It is another day, another story of the James Harden drama, but this one may swing in a way that Sixers fans are quite happy to see. Now, before I dive fully into this, make sure to subscribe to the channel, click a like on this video, and make sure to ring that bell to make sure you're not missing out on any of the awesome content that we got putting forth and will continue to go out as we get closer to the season and once we dive fully into the Sixers waters. So, to touch on what we're getting into today, Shams Charania of The Athletic did drop another report on the James Harden situation. We've heard plenty up in the air since James Harden. His future was uncertain with the Sixers. We heard the liar comments of him calling out Daryl Morey. And today the NBA decided to investigate the situation and find their determination, according to Shams, that the NBA probe into his liar comment. James Harden told the league investigators that he was referring to Daryl Morey telling Harden he will trade him, quote, quickly following the $35.6 million opt-in for the 23-24 season per sources. The 76ers stance is they now expect to keep Harden. Now, why this is a good thing is if the investigation did date back to that handshake agreement that occurred last offseason, or many have speculated could have occurred last offseason, which was, James Harden, you take a $15 million pay cut this year, and we will reward you on the back end. That pay cut was used to bring in guys like P.J. Tucker and like Daniel House to round out the roster in an effective way and hopefully build a championship roster around James Harden and Joel Embiid. That obviously did not occur, and I think James Harden is obviously frustrated that he did not receive the contract he was expecting to. What I want to put on the table is I think it's extremely unlikely that Daryl Morey ever sat there and said, look, you take it now, and we will give you this money on the back end. Could there have been stuff said between the lines or read in between the lines or indications that could have been interpreted ways? Stuff like, hey, James, you take this pay cut now, and we will take care of you in the future. Things like that I think are absolutely said, but I think it is to Harden's determination that could possibly be the case. And now the NBA is saying that this is only referring to James Harden saying he would opt in and Daryl Morey agreeing that he would trade him. That, I do believe, that is the more likely outcome. And the thing that is great in the Sixers area here is they cannot be punished for that. There is nothing against the CBA that indicates that they are in the wrong. Is it a shady way to do business? Is it not the best optics to other players around the NBA? Absolutely. And is it the best situation for the Sixers? Still no. This is still a mess. This is still a ton of drama that's going to be playing out in front of us. But I don't think this is something the Sixers can be punished for, which is an extremely great sign based on how bare the cupboard is, how they were just hit with the tampering fine last year with those P.J. Tucker and Daniel House signings. So overall, this checks out well for the Sixers. But the story of James Harden and the Sixers is not done being written. There still needs to be a conclusion to this whole standstill. And as I want to touch on things, I never want to pocket watch, but I do think it's important to bring up this for the context of the James Harden conversation. We've seen him get unhappy at several different places now. We've seen this in Houston, we've seen this in Brooklyn, and we're now seeing this in Philadelphia. In the process of that has also led to James Harden missing out on a lot of money. So let's talk about in his last year in Houston, as they were attempting to sign him to an extension and ensure he stayed with the organization. He obviously did not want to do that. He rejected a 2-year extension worth $103 million, so over $50 million annually in that deal. Rejected that with his desire to go to Brooklyn. He made it to Brooklyn, and then he was offered a 3-year extension, a 3-year contract worth $161 million, another deal grossing $50 million per year, which is massive money, even in an NBA standpoint. And then last year, as I mentioned, he declined his player option of $47.4 million. He did sign for the $33 million. He'll be on the table for $36 million next year. This guy is not hurting for money by any means. But even a guy of that stature and of that tax bracket of how much he is pulling in, that is still a massive amount of money to basically just waste and turn down, which is what James Harden has done. Some of this, I do believe, comes down to him operating without an agent. A lot of NBA players do this nowadays. It's becoming more and more common that they work without an agent. And for the most part, it makes sense that when you're a guy of a superstar caliber like Joel Embiid or like James Harden, Joel Embiid also works without an agent. That brings in an extra, a lot of money on the contract. That percentage that would otherwise go to the agent, that goes right to their bank account. So it does make sense when you have basically a blank check written for you, as James Harden has for most of his career, as Joel Embiid currently has. But when you start getting yourself in sticky situations like James Harden has become very good at that, then that's the place where you kind of need a professional to be able to dig through and make things happen. James Harden is now operating with an agent, which I do believe is in his best interest if he wants to accomplish the goals and get to the team that he desires. it's going to take a professional, and it also just damages the reputation and the relationship when this is the player to general manager conversations, or if there has to be the direct James Harden to Daryl Morey conversations. It's good that there's a middleman in this situation, so it is good that James Harden's operating with an agent once again, but that doesn't change the fact that the situation is the situation. So here's where we stand. We know how we got here with the liar video. We have the unhappiness of the season, the Sixers' decision not to offer a long-term max deal, which was the right call for the Sixers franchise moving forward, as much of a mess as it has created. I don't disagree with the situation still. The handling of it, there's plenty that you can nitpick and have issues with, but the actual decision made sense for the Sixers. But the reason that the market is as stale as it is because James Harden is flat out declining. Yes, he's still a very good NBA player. He's still an above average, a borderline all-star guy. Averaged 20 and 10 last year, led the NBA in assists, but the signs of deterioration are there in his play. I wanted to pull up these numbers right here. I want to start off with his at the rim percentage. That's where the biggest jump out in him falling apart that I'm seeing. James Harden shot just 57.1% at the rim last year. His rookie season in 2009-2010 was the only season he shot worse, shot 46% there. You look down all the other years of his career, he never drops below 60. The only year that he was close to that was in 2018-2019 at 60.7%. And for the most part, the 68%, 68%, 66%, 68%, 65%, he's been a good shooter at the rim, as should be the case. It should be easier at the rim. So 57.1% is concerning. That is an issue for James Harden, and it's that lack of explosion, that lack of verticality when he does get by somebody that's extremely evident in his game. And beyond that, I wanted to bring up the dunk numbers. So the dunk attempts that James Harden was never an above-the-rim athlete. That was never a huge strength in his game, even in his prime. But look at these numbers here. Starting when he first came to the league, 29 dunk attempts, 56 dunk attempts, pretty much operating in somewhat of that zone in the 40s, 30s even. All the way dropped down to recently. He had 8 in 2021. He had 3 in 21-22, and he had 2 in 22-23. My fault for not having that included on the graphic there. That is on me. But the decline is official, that he's not getting that vertical burst anymore. Think about the couple times that he did dunk last year, and that was like a look around and like, whoa, what just happened moment. And that should not be the case for a guy who is 6'5" and a legitimate all-star NBA player, one of the 75 best players to ever play the sport. And it is. That's how it feels for James Harden, that it is shocking when he goes up there. Now, does this change anything? From James Harden, I think it should. That I think he should realize that the leverage, there's nothing more that he can do. He's done everything possible to create leverage. I've called him the Michael Jordan of guys forcing himself out of teams. And frankly, he is. That he's still going to continue to cause a ruckus, cause an issue within the Sixers organization. But neither Daryl Morey nor James Harden are guys you really want to go into staring contests with. That Daryl Morey is not going to blink until he gets his perceived value back. It is not in James Harden's best interest to continue pounding the table of wanting to go to the Clippers, because that's not going to change anything from Daryl Morey's perspective. The Clippers feel like they're bidding against themselves, that there's no other team in the NBA interested, because there really might not be. If you look around the entire NBA, you see the baggage that comes with James Harden at this point. You see the price point that he is commanding as an NBA player. He still wants to be paid like a superstar, and while he's still a very good player, he's not a guy that you have a blank check attached to. He's just not anymore. And it's only slowing down. He's a guy who we know the off-court habits, all the reputation that sticks with him, and just the reputation from a postseason standpoint, that he's not a guy that a team should be itching to bring in to get them over that hump, because that specific hump has tripped him up throughout his entire career. So what does James Harden do from here? That is the question. That we know he's going to continue down this trailblazing path of making life as impossible for these Sixers. But I really don't see that works out in the best interest for his future. Think about it. This guy has a 1-year deal left on his contract. That is the fact. That is the bottom line. There is no changing that. That at the conclusion of this season, he will be a free agent, and we will be doing the same song and dance regardless of what teams he's on. That he will be searching for a long-term, high-value contract, and he needs to find a team to give him to him. If he causes a stir and is a head case for this entire season, you think anybody's rolling out the red carpet to sign him to a max deal? Absolutely not. I honestly don't see a way where any team gives him a max contract. And the only way this works out in Harden's case where there is a chance of that is if he's traded to a team where he can re-sign to. Because we know how the CBA works, the intricacies of it, that you can go above these certain cap numbers to re-sign your players in a way that you can't to sign others. The Larry Bird rule, the Bird rights, there's a ton of intricacies to it. But it would very much be in James Harden's best interest to be traded to a team where he can re-sign with. That's why the Clippers are so appealing. They're a team that is dead set. Steve Ballmer is opening up the pockets. He doesn't care what the price point is. He's there to put butts in the seats in the arena. They got that a new arena coming out, adding James Harden to the Paul George and Kawhi combo. That is what they are in desire of. But they're clearly not that motivated to get the job done based on what is holding up these trade conversations. That if there was somewhat of fair value, I'm totally willing to believe that Daryl Morey would take less value than he would necessarily hold, but he's not going to mess up the Sixers franchise. That he would permanently shut the Sixers championship windows by taking a deal that does not put the organization in a better standpoint. If that is a Marcus Morris and Robert Covington deal, that's just not one that elevates the Sixers into the true championship contender category, as they keep desiring to be. So for now, we have this staring contest between Daryl Morey and James Harden. But I think James Harden needs to realize that he continues to run out of options. The only way that he does not become a free agent next year is if he holds out completely. And then that puts the responsibility in the Sixers' hand to completely dictate his basketball future. That if he holds out for 30 days after training camp, if he passes that 30-day mark, the Sixers have the freedom to not allow him to be a free agent, and they have to sign off on whatever team he signs with next. That is not a spot he wants to put himself in. So the bottom line is the best option for everybody. James Harden's got to kind of reel it in a little bit. I understand. I respect it. I get your goals, but it's not working the way that you're trying to do. That whether it's some ill-advised advice, I know that there's been reports that the agent did not agree with Harden's decision to go out and call Morey a liar in the way that he did it. So we will see what happens from here. There's still a lot to unfold with this, but this Shams Charania report is a big deal from the Sixers' perspective. That it is clear that there is nothing that they could truly be punished for, so they are in the right in this negotiation tactic. He is under contract with the Sixers. That is the fact. He's going to be a free agent at the end of this season. That is a fact. If he wants that one last big contract, he should be on his best behavior. It would be in his best interest, and hopefully that there's some sort of agreement reached between these two. We will see what happens from here. There's still plenty more to unfold. This is an absolute mess, and honestly, it wouldn't shock me if he pulls something else out and he has another trick in his book to complicate things, get in the headlines once again. I'm honestly braced and ready for that at this point. That is the James Harden experience. So if that happens, I'll be here to break it down for you guys. Appreciate you for tuning in. Make sure to drop a like on this video, drop a comment, let me know your thoughts, drop a subscribe to this channel, and I'll be back talking to you next time right here on Sixers Digest. Peace.